want you to take me to years ago when you got the part of King George. How did that unfold? How did you get that primo spot?
It's a crazy story, actually, because I was doing another Broadway show called Nerds, and I was playing Bill Gates in this crazy musical comedy about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, Apple versus Microsoft. And we were about 3 weeks into rehearsal, and the producer walked in and said, "Everyone go home. We are not opening on Broadway." And it was this terrible experience where we thought we were going to have this new Broadway show, and everyone was devastated. And the next day we ran through the show for ourselves, basically like a wake. I was like, this is an Irish wake. We're just saying goodbye to the show, rehearsing it for ourselves. And we invited the creative team and some other people who worked on the show to watch it in the rehearsal room. And afterwards, I was so crushed. And my agent called and she said, "How would you like to do another Broadway show?" And I said, "Oh no, I don't think I could right now. I'm just so devastated." And she said, "Well, what if it's to play the king in Hamilton?" And I said, "I'm on my way. I'll be at the theater right now." and, and it turns out that the casting director for the show that I was doing, Bethany Knox, who works at Bernie Telsey Casting, she cast the show that collapsed, and she also cast another show called Hamilton. And at the same time that my show collapsed, Jonathan Groff, who was in the original company of Hamilton, got a show on Netflix and was leaving 4 months early before which is an unheard of thing. So out of the blue, I get this call to come into Hamilton. And it's because of this show collapsing and having this horrible situation happen, and having the casting director for it come to our little Irish wake that we put on for it. And she saw that I was funny, that I could do comedy, and she knew I was available. and, and I was offered the part like 2 days later. And within a week, I was in a dressing room next to Lin-Manuel Miranda and the entire original cast. It was like being transported into a Broadway nerd's dream.
Yeah. I mean, that is like all the stars aligning, literally
Yeah.
all the stars aligning. And then you end up, I mean, that cast, what was it like to be part of especially that cast? Because I mean,
Yeah.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is just a household name at this point for what he's done with Hamilton.
Yeah. No, and he's also just so genuinely nice and giving and welcoming. And luckily, I've known him for years, since his days with In the Heights, because he's almost like the mayor of Broadway. He's the biggest Broadway fan there is. I remember doing a charity event right after and I was volunteering at this charity event. Lin-Manuel Miranda came as a celebrity guest, and he had seen me in an early version of The Book of Mormon, one of my first Broadway roles that I got nominated for a Tony for. But this is like when there were like 30 people who came to see the show in our first reading, and he has known Bobby Lopez forever, and they're good friends. And Bobby was one of the writers with Matt and Trey from South Park. And he came to an early reading of it. He saw me at this charity event, and he came up to me and he said, "Oh my God, you're in the Book of Mormon. You're so good. It's a fantastic show." And I was like, volunteering at this event, and here comes Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I was so starstruck, and I was like, "Thank you." And we were so nervous about the Book of Mormon because it was so controversial and crazy. I thought, Lin likes the show. We've got something,
Yeah.
and it kept me going. And he was always so nice and kind to me throughout the years. So to be able to come into the show that I knew was so special, that included Leslie Odom Jr., who I went to college with as well. I had seen the show off Broadway at the Public, and I saw the character of the King played by Brian Darcy James at that point in time. And when I saw that, I thought, one day, man, I have got to play that part. And little did I know, a year later, I would be on stage with that entire original cast. It's the greatest, craziest thing that has ever happened to me in my career, and will ever happen to me in my career, because I don't think it gets crazier than that.
I don't know, Rory, you've had some good ones. I got to tell you, you've had some really good moments, and it's just incredible to watch. Did you have that pinch me moment though? Like when you were, was it the first night or like halfway through? Did you have that moment of like, oh my God, this is my life?
You know, I'm so lucky that I've had a few of these really cool moments that were dreams come true. And really, the first one was the Book of Mormon and being nominated for a Tony, because the first time I went to the Tony Awards and was nominated for a Tony, I kept thinking, is this the real Tony Awards? Is this really happening? The whole
Yeah.
time just kind of like, this could be like a pretend Tony Awards, or how could I possibly be here in this situation? And so the whole time the challenge is just to be present and just to know that you're having this moment that you worked your entire life for.
Yeah.
And it's a hard challenge to take on. So I went through that with the Book of Mormon. When I had the opportunity to be a part of Hamilton and it had already opened, it had already become this huge thing, I thought, I'm not going to deny myself one moment of this joy. I'm going to be totally present. And that's what I practiced. Like before I would come on stage, it's just taking breaths, walking on stage, and knowing that I deserve to be on stage with this incredible cast in this wonderful show. And it was just pure bliss. It was
Yeah.
overwhelming because I'd never seen a reaction to a show, even with the Book of Mormon, because there were a lot of Book of Mormon fans, but they were all in college or older.
Yeah.
Hamilton fans are pretty young, and the kids were screaming whenever Lynn would leave the building. It felt like I was in Beatlemania or something. It was
So good.
it was incredible, and it was just so fun to have a first row seat to theater history.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the post. You had written something on Facebook. We won't go into the whole story about why, but you in your post, and it was like I was copied, um, was talking about, and then Lynn Manuel Miranda won the Pulitzer, and you're like, you're
Oh,
working. Remember, you know what I'm talking about.
yes.
But I was just like, oh my gosh, Rory, like you're in this show working with somebody who just won a Pulitzer, and you guys are like shoulder to shoulder, and I mean, I was even showing my girls on YouTube because we were talking about Hamilton. I'm like, let me show you this. And I mean, there is like, you have fans out there that are posting some of your performances. And coming back to like, let's think back to when we were 15 or 14, whenever we knew each other way back when.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that that would be your life?
No, no, I didn't. I mean, I remember so vividly that time just desperately wanting to get into the Magnificat high school musical and just hoping that somehow I could get. I mean, I remember my nerves. I remember how just that was the biggest deal, is being in the plays at St. Ignatius and Magnificat. And so it's too hard to think beyond that when you're in high school, just
Yeah.
what's right in front of you. And this is definitely living beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm so grateful for that. And the only reason I can do that is because of the theater community at my high school and also just Cleveland in general, which is so strong. And it really took me leaving Cleveland to realize how many theaters and how strong and vibrant the theater community is in Cleveland, and how I should appreciate that I got to grow up with that.
Yeah. And now you get to come home. Now you get to do it. You get to be King George here at home. What's that going to be like?
I'm okay. First of all, I'm nervous. I don't
No way. No.
I'm more nervous now to do it in Cleveland than I was on Broadway with the whole cast. No, I think it is truly the most full circle moment of my career. And you better believe this is not by chance. This didn't happen by accident. When I found out, I think my Uncle Mike Gibbons told me first that Hamilton was coming to Cleveland when I was visiting for all of July. We were there for all of July this last summer. And I thought, maybe I should go see it while we're home for Christmas, because we're always home in Cleveland for Christmas. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if I make some phone calls and beg? Because the show is coming to the State Theater at Playhouse Square. And I have very vivid memories of my mom picking me up from Glenview Daycare Center when I was going to Westerly in Bay Village,
Yeah.
Ohio at that time, and saying that her boss at her accounting firm had season tickets to Playhouse Square and wasn't able to use these 2 tickets. And she was going to take me that night to go see a musical called Les Miserables. And I didn't know anything about it. I was in 3rd grade, probably inappropriate in some places. But I am telling you, my mother took me to that show. I think we were in the last row, and it changed my life.
Wow.
It changed my life.
What
And
was it about it? Like, was it the performance? Was it the whole theater? What was it that felt like this is it?
It was a whole new world of possibility, a whole new world of dreams. Because I had already gotten a bit of the theater bug, which is clearly why my mother wanted to take me when she got a hold of these tickets. I was at Our Lady of Angels in West Park before, at this time in 2nd grade. I played St. Joseph in the Christmas pageant at Our Lady of Angels. Now, my Aunt Peggy Ann was a 2nd grade teacher there, and she also happened to be the director of the Christmas pageant. And so that's how I got the lead. It's always who you know in this business.
Nepotism.
That's as far as mine got me, was 2nd grade at Our Lady of Angels. That's as far as my family is connected in this business. And I remember being on stage at OLA in their, the gym, and thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be an actor. And I was 8 years old. And I sat my mom down at our dining room table and I said, don't laugh at me, Mom, but I know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be an actor. And Jerry O'Malley, God bless her, she didn't laugh at me. She was a single mom who was working as an accountant, who certainly was not hoping to raise an actor as a child. But she enrolled me at the Beck Center Children's Theater, and that's where I was for 10 years, going to children's theater classes and getting to be a part of that community. Saved my life in many ways, and I give so much credit to Beck Center. But Playhouse Square, seeing a Broadway show, seeing these performers who are at the top level of this art form come and perform, it was extraordinary. It blew my mind. And I know it set me on the path that I'm still on today. And I'm so excited to get to be on that same stage and to perform in a show that I know a lot of young people in Cleveland are going to come to. And it's going to change their lives. Hopefully they won't all want to become actors, but they might get it. They might want to become history teachers. They might want to become lawyers. They might want to become musicians, and they will be inspired by this show in so many ways. So to get to be a part of that circle and to do it at Playhouse Square at the State Theater is truly, truly a gift.
Yeah. And we always say small Cleveland. Like Cleveland, everybody knows each other, especially like Westside Catholic Cleveland is always like somebody knows somebody, and there's always a connection. And it's funny because we even have a producer on our morning show that was at Beck Center with you.
Oh, no way.
And then, Brooke, red hair.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she wants me to say her last name, but so I mean, just even like my own little cubicles, like there's 2 connections to you. So you have to imagine that there's so many people who, grew up knowing you or, knew you when you were a kid that are going to want to come out and see you on the stage. And so when you look out, and I know it's hard to see through the lights and everything, but I mean, you could possibly look up and see like Rory O'Malley, this is your life. Here's all these people. I mean, is that what makes you nervous, or is that going to be a great homecoming?
Yeah, I always say it's easier for me to perform in front of thousands of people in a dark room rather than for my family at the dinner table, when your family's like, sing something, do something for us. It
Be
makes you
funny.
nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's mostly just because I want to make the city proud. I really do. I want to make the most of this moment and to be able to show this city what they gave to me, not just through my performance, but this show and this cast is extraordinary that's coming to Cleveland. And not and this time for theater is so important because we're coming back after a pandemic. We've had such a difficult time in theater because we were completely shut down for so long. We were the last thing to come back to life. And this period of time, it's going to take a while for people to get back in the routine of showing up and supporting theater and remembering that this is a part of life. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's going to show up to see Hamilton at Playhouse Square or seeing theater anywhere in Cleveland. And I hope that they remember to support local theater in Cleveland because it's the most important time to do it in any way that you can. And to bring your kids to see a live theater in Cleveland. Take it from me, it can change their lives.
That's sweet. Let's do some housekeeping. What dates are you performing?
So I will be in Hamilton as the King December 19th and every performance until it closes on January 15th. So I'm just not in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The first 2 weeks, though, we'll have Neil Haskell, who is playing the King, and he's the only reason I'm doing this because I've known Neil for years. He was in the ensemble in the original Broadway cast as a dancer. He's an insanely talented guy. He was on So You Think You Can Dance. Like he's the real deal, total star. But I've known him for years. And when I got this idea, he's the one I called and I said, hey, I have this idea. Would you want to go home for Christmas?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Cleveland anyway. And I kind of pitched it to him, and he was like, Rory, I got to perform Hamilton in my hometown. It was amazing. And I totally get it. And he's the reason that I was allowed to do this. Then we talked to the company, and they said, okay, as well. But if you're seeing Neil, you're pretty lucky because he's an extraordinary king in those first 2 weeks. But I'll be there December 19th through January 15th for about 33 shows or something like that. And I hope I'm not just like sobbing, crying through every single performance because that's not a very good acting choice for the king.
Do you have it like, I mean, obviously you have it memorized, but do you even need rehearsal? Do you know it like the back of your hand?
I'm gonna probably have like a couple of hours of rehearsal, which is more time than I'll be on stage probably for the whole run that I'm in Cleveland because it's only 9 minutes of performance. But really, especially because you aren't with other actors, my only other scene partner is the audience. I'm talking to the audience the entire time. So it's not like anything else I've ever done. So I don't need as much rehearsal. But you better believe I go over those lyrics before every entrance because especially, with a kid, like my brain doesn't work the same way that it used to.
Yeah, you're going to be on a time change too. You got to get used
Yes.
to back used to East Coast time, which is different.
Yes. And this is like, this last time I did Hamilton here in Los Angeles was the first time I did 8 shows a week with a child. And it is no joke.
Yeah.
It's no. But I couldn't be more excited to be doing this in Cleveland, truly.